Hello everyone, my name is Addison Hunsley, and today I wanted to talk to you about a topic that I have dealt with on a personal level, and is something that I think people need to be more educated about, and that is how sports can affect mental health. Mental health is something that people deal with on a day-to-day basis, but not a lot of people realize this due to the fact that it is internal and not external. Athletes deal with mental health specifically because they are constantly in the public eye and are constantly glorified and looked at as being the best or are the best. This can create an unrealistic view on athletes and can give a non-athletic person an unrealistic view of what it's like to be perfect. Going hand in hand with this, athletic pressure is a key thing that athletes deal with every single day. Taylor's Strategies, Olympics Cast Spotlight on Mental Health of Athletes by Anna Rose Rubright talks about the pressure that athletes face on and off the court. She talks about what we could do to support these athletes, and giving pressure or putting pressure on these athletes can cause athletes to spiral and eventually snap. She gives an example of an Olympic gold medalist snowboarder, Chloe Kim, who had won her gold medal and that same day went and threw it in the trash because she had believed that she had underperformed because she did not attempt a new trick that she had learned. A lot of people today don't know that everyone has a different version of what is good and what is bad, and especially for athletes, that line starts to blur because athletes think that everything is bad unless it is perfect. Diving more into that, Kindbridge Behavioral Health, Managing Mental Health Risks Associated with Sports by Kindbridge, talks about the 5 potential risks that athletes are at for having mental health problems. They talk about bullying, eating disorder, sleep and stress disorder, exercise addiction, and anxiety and depression. All 5 of these categories come from the fact that athletes are constantly in the public eye and feel like that they have to be perfect 110% of the time, when that is not at all true. This can cause so many other psychological and mental health issues down the road. This can cause somebody to commit an acts of self-harm, can cause someone to have suicidal thoughts, poor body image, and so on. Because of this stress that athletes put on themselves, this can cause an athlete to be overly anxious, overly stressed, to have poor sleep quality, and to even get depressed. Johns Hopkins Medicine, Student Athletes Mental Health Tips for Parents and Coaches by Valeria Valve. She talks about what parents, coaches, and friends and family can do to maybe support and uplift our athletes as they navigate through this challenging time in their life. Because as an athlete, every new competition is going to be challenging. You don't really know what you're going to go into. So athletes are constantly in a state of stressed. Even when they don't feel like they're stressed, there is such thing as positive stress, which can affect you negatively. They also elaborate on youth sports and how we need to be careful about what we expose our youth to, as they are still developing and they are still young, and constantly being negative and pressuring our youth can create unhealthy habits for when they get older. It also can cause depression in youth, which not a lot of people realize, and youth don't really show. It can kind of just be like shown as burnt out or like laziness or boredom, when in reality it could be depression. Burnout is also very real in athletes, and we should never push an athlete to keep going when they're burnt out. For an example, in today's media, there was a Penn State setter. Her name was Izzy. She actually had to step down due to mental health and the pressure that she was being put on, as she had won an NCAA championship last year and just felt like she couldn't do it again this year. There's also an idea of perfectionism, that athletes have to be perfect 100% of the time, and that's also unrealistic because nobody is perfect, and trying to push yourself to the limit of being perfect can honestly override that feeling of joy and can just create negative thoughts and a negative environment around you because you are trying to be perfect. The next article I want to talk about is Deconstructing Stigma, Strength Isn't Just Physical, Exploring Athletes' Mental Health. There was no author in this. This article talks about how mental health is becoming more recognized, and how mental health not only can have its downsides, but it also can start to spark up some psychological issues. And fun fact, athletes are more at risk to have mental health issues. With the stress and pressure of athletes, this can cause them to underperform, which can create so many other issues and can cause someone to struggle to get out of the hole that they built themselves in because they keep underperforming because they're stressed or overworked or are dealing with issues. Fun fact, an NCAA student athlete well-being study released in 2022 found that female athletes experience more incidents of mental health exhaustion. This was written as a quote in the Deconstructing Stigma article, and it just kind of shows that athletes do deal with mental health issues, so we really shouldn't overlook it, and overlooking it can be detrimental and can cause athletes to maybe start hurting themselves. The next thing I want to also talk about is Mass General Birmingham's Mental Health in Sports by Rachel Vandenkerken. She talks about how we should nurture mental health and that there's so many other sides other than just physical health, and to remember that, because when you are playing an individual sport in sports, that can cause you to be you versus yourself. So we should definitely take time to ourselves and learn how to love ourselves first before we go out there and try and prove our point to somebody else. It also talks about how we should speak up when we need help, because nobody's going to know what you are dealing with until you let people help you. Overall today, I hope that this was very beneficial for you guys and that you learned something, and maybe to take a step back and learn more about our athletes. Thank you.